I feel short. I know that, as David said before, this is the end of a long day. Starting at 3 was late, challenging. We're going to, thank you, David. We're going to have just a few remarks from a couple of people who have some interesting things to say, and I'm going to introduce them and ask them to come up. I'm trying to see if they're all in the room. If they're not, that's a problem. We have, is Patricia Baker here? Would you come up and take a seat at this podium? Thank you. Chris Coffin? Jack Kittredge? And Edith Murnane? And what we want to do in this last session, recognizing all of our fatigue and that it's Sunday night and Downton Abbey goes on at 9. All right, no one else watches Downton Abbey. Everybody else watches The Good Wife, but I do. I was asked each of the speakers to just give like a 2 or 3 minute, here's who I am, here's what I do, and then I really just want to use who they are as a way to open it up for conversation about all the different things that we've been experiencing this afternoon. Please just come in. This is a very relaxed session. We're all ready to be relaxed. So let me start at the extreme stage left with Edith. Is that stage left or stage right? Anyhow, let's start with Edith. And Edith Murnane is one of my favorite people in Boston. She is the director of culinary initiatives for the city of Boston. And what an 18 months she has had. And let her talk a little bit about herself.
Thank you. Okay, how's that? Is that a little bit better? My name is Edith. I am the mayor's director of food initiatives in Boston. And when I think about what we do on the city level, city governance is really about where rubber meets the road. It's where all of the federal and state policies and funding initiatives play out. And so our mayor here in Boston has been working on food projects and food initiatives for the past 25 years or so, whether that be bringing supermarkets into every neighborhood in Boston, supporting farmers markets. There are now 26 in the city, most of which accept SNAP benefits, WIC coupons, senior coupons, and there's a wonderful program called the Boston Bounty Bucks that supplements SNAP benefits. Whether it be that physical access, economic access, such as the Boston Bounty Bucks, or whether it be about working on school nutrition, or whether it be using the idea that that food has the ability to create jobs. In Boston, over the last 5 years, roughly $1 billion has been spent just in Boston on SNAP benefits. That has an enormous potential impact, not only at places like Stop and Shop and Market Basket, but at farmers markets and at small bodegas. So I'm here with a city hat on. The mayor was recently appointed to lead and chair the U.S. Conference of Mayors Food Policy Task Force. And so part of that conversation will be hopefully to get other cities to start thinking about how food impacts hunger, health, economic opportunity, and how this farm bill plays into that. So.
Chris.
Sorry, long-winded. I
Go with
apologize.
it.
Should we keep going?
Oh, excuse me. We're out of order on my list. You are Patricia.
I am.
Yes. Excuse me.
Still?
Please.
Oh, okay, sure. I'm Pat Baker with the Mass Law Reform Institute, and I'm also the chair of the Massachusetts Food SNAP Improvement Coalition. Massachusetts had the worst food stamp participation rate in the country from 2000 to 2004, 51st, including the District of Columbia. We are now 8th in the nation, and largely due to really getting the state to elect a lot of policy options to bring those federal dollars back into the Commonwealth, and encouraging USDA to let the state elect waivers and pilots to bring that money home. The Farm Bill, as you heard earlier, 84% of it currently, of the funding in the Farm Bill, is for the SNAP program. So it is a big chunk of the funding, even though it's only one of 15 titles in the bill. And to marry some of the issues that were discussed today about local or regional, healthy food, it really needs to be affordable, and affordable for all residents of the Commonwealth and of the country. So the initiatives that we work on are to make sure that everyone has a place at the table and can economically purchase the foods, and a number of terrific initiatives such as Boston Bounty Bucks and some of the senior programs, a pilot out in Western Massachusetts called the Healthy Initiative Pilot, which is working with producers or vendors, supermarkets and stores to give an incentive to make healthy food purchases for the SNAP population are key, we think, in both shaping people's eating habits differently, but recognizing that healthy food is expensive. And when you think about food stamps or SNAP providing $1.43 on average per meal, it is really hard for a low-income person to make healthy food choices. So our hope is that the Farm Bill has a very robust nutrition title that protects and supports that SNAP element, while also working very closely with the other titles to make sure that there are healthy food choices available for all.
Thank you. Chris.
Hi, everyone. I'm Chris Coffin. I'm the New England Director with American Farmland Trust. Thank you. American Farmland Trust is a member-supported, my development people always want me to say that slowly, member-supported, national organization, and we are devoted specifically to the protection of farmland and encouraging farming practices that lead to a healthy environment. That's a twin mission of ours. We come to the Farm Bill and have been involved in the Farm Bill since we were created in 1980, recognizing that 40% of the United States is managed by farmers and ranchers. So if you want to impact the environmental health of this country, the way to do it is through the Farm Bill, which we always say is the single largest environmental spending program in the country. So from our perspective, the way that that Farm Bill is spent and how those resources are allocated, both in the conservation title, which, as you saw from that slide, is a pretty small piece of the pie, but that there are other ways as well of using conservation spending and other ways of encouraging conservation through the Farm Bill, how those farm commodity programs are built can be fashioned in a way to encourage environmental performance, what is allowed to be planted, and that discussion about the types of programs that are supported, that too goes to the conservation of our resources. Lastly, when you look at farmland protection, even though we are losing farmland to the tune of about 1 million acres a year, less than 1% of the Farm Bill is actually spent on farmland protection. And those programs are not just important to ensure that we have the capacity in the future to produce food, encourage wildlife, protect our air, protect our water. But those programs are increasingly important to the beginning farmers of the country, who the way they are getting onto land is to get onto land that is already protected, and thus reducing the cost to them. A giant shout out to all of those who work in this field, particularly John Piatti and the Maine Farmland Trust, that are doing the work on the ground to help connect those next generation of farmers with protected farmland, because it's enormously important. I'll stop there.
Jack Kittredge.
Thank you. My name is Jack Kittredge, and my wife and I own a 55-acre organic farm in Barre, Massachusetts, in the center part of the state, and we're very active in the Northeast Organic Farming Association. And I wanted to, I've been talking with people in the gallery all afternoon about a couple aspects of the Farm Bill that I wanted just to briefly mention today that pertain to its impact on small farms. One thing I haven't heard much discussion of that we're concerned about and we hear a lot about is the impact internationally on small farming throughout the rest of the world. One impact of the commodity programs is that we essentially subsidize some of the major commodities, corn is an example, soy, cotton, and that enables them to be bought by large agribusiness conglomerates like Cargill or Archer Daniel Midlands or somebody, and then dumped in the third world at a very low price where they can still make their profit because they bought it as a subsidized product. And the effect of that is that the farmers in Mexico, for instance, who are raising corn no longer have a market for their corn. So they're losing their farming opportunities and ending up going to the cities and getting involved in whatever they can to make a living to support their families. And I see the same is happening with cotton in Africa and India. And a number of our crops are having this effect of destabilizing world agriculture. And the impact of that is often to destabilize the political situation in a country. And the effect of that is down the line, we're also going to, send Marines or somebody else to try to deal with that destabilized culture and society. So that's a long-run impact that I think is very important to understand. And our tax dollars are helping to support that kind of destabilization. The other impact is on small farms in this country by driving up the price of farmland. These subsidies effectively drive up the price of farmland in the Midwest and throughout the rest of the country. They make it very hard for small farmers to get into farming. What we would like to see more attention brought to is the whole issue that has supported farming in Europe, that was something that in the New Deal supported a decent farming price, is some supply management issues, which are ways to restrict the supply of agriculture, make sure that not too much is produced, so that an adequate price is preserved for the farmers, so that we don't have the kind of dumping that we have in international markets, and in fact, we have a self-supporting industry which can actually employ people. So I haven't heard much talk about that, but I think there are some farm groups that call for that, and we're interested in exploring those options. So that just kind of broadens it in two directions, I think, talking about the impact on small farmers and what potentially a farm bill could do.
Thank you all. I need a show of hands. There are kind of two ways to handle the next few minutes of this, because we had said to everybody that we would end at 6, and one way is to take a few questions from the audience, and the other way is to let us all just kind of come together and speak to whomever wants to speak. Do we have questions from the audience, or shall we be more informal and just let the conversation flow one-on-one as you want to ask a direct question? I think so too. I feel that we're tired, and that is there anybody with a burning question that they want to present to the whole group, or are there people who really want to continue to have conversations? Henrietta.
I'm Henrietta Davis. I'm a city councilor in Cambridge, and Cambridge has signed on to the Seattle Farm Bill principles.
Maybe you need the mic here. She is a big deal. She is the vice mayor of Cambridge. She deserves to be heard.
Well, thank you, Lisa. For complicated reasons, I'm not exactly the vice mayor right now, but we'll leave that aside. I'm a city councilor. In your heart. The City Council of Seattle has developed Farm Bill principles that they're asking for social justice and equity, sustainability, a whole, the kind of 6 things that really frame what kinds of things might change the Farm Bill to make it more responsive. And I just thought you all might want to know about that and look up the Seattle Farm Bill. The City Council president there, Richard Conlon, is making a pitch to cities all over the country, including Boston, to sign on to this as a framework. And I know there's many things you might like to do, but I just suggest you look up the Seattle Farm Bill principles to see if that's something you as an individual or your organization would like to sign on to. You'll see there's thousands of people there, most from Washington so far, but Utah, Minnesota, Illinois, and now Massachusetts are all represented there as well. Thank you. And thank you to Louisa. Let's give, I don't know if anybody's going to give Louisa a round of applause for organizing this great event. Thank you.
Thank you. So anyone else who has a sort of a public level conversation, which I do not mean that in a challenging way, a question is a public level conversation.
Louisa?
Yes.
Can I just want to take a moment with the folks who are here in this room, because there was never today really a sort of direct take action other than just now what you can do. And as John and I were walking back down here and talking, and I said, well, what would you tell people to do? And he and I were of much minds, is I spent a decade working in the United States Senate, and I cannot tell you, you may be surprised, but you know what? Letters and phone calls and emails make a difference. And I don't care where you come in from the Farm Bill and what part of it, but having a conversation in some way with your member of Congress or their staff is hugely important. Finding an opportunity when they're in district at a meeting, being able to talk to them, whether it's support the Pingree bill or align USDA spending with dietary guidelines, it doesn't matter. The message is less important that you are in fact making your voice heard, because from a staff perspective, that was always the first question that I got asked, and it's usually important.
And I think that's an incredibly important point, Chris, and because that's always the goal for everything. What can we do that will have impact? And I would love it, and I'd be happy to work on getting the word out, if people would email to me a few of those specific acts that we can take and organize people around and let them know what they can do and the websites they can go to and the phone calls they can make. I mean, that is something that I know that Let's Talk About Food can be helpful in, without being an advocate of one point of view or another, but letting people know how they're empowered. So I thank you for bringing that up. I see a question in the front row.
Actually, one more thing to that point. If all of you experts who know more than some of us who aren't in this field can tell us of these recommendations, which we just spent time on, what you might think might be the most effective, and then let us know who are here how we can access those recommendations, then we can do what you said, which is move forward. You know, if there's 16 there and I call my congressperson, I would want to know which are the two, maybe in your view, that are most effective. That might be a action that you can then build on the actual work that was done here.
That's a good idea. Let me work on that. Let me see how we can present that and use that.
We can share those definitely in a couple of ways. We can send them to people who registered. We can edit them into the slides. There's a lot we can do.
That would be great.
Anybody wants to?
And Louisa, a comment was made to get Scott Brown involved because he's Republican, but he's in the Senate. My understanding is that Pingree bill is a House bill. What do we say to him?
There is a Senate companion to the Pingree bill.
Okay.
And I'm trying to, I think that if you go to our website, which is www.farmbillfacts.org, it has information about it.
And just furthering that point, is John Kerry, as a Massachusetts, is he, does he have a position of, I mean, I know that the Farm Bill, the Ag Committee is not a committee he sits on, but is it helpful to let him know, to write letters to him as well?
Yes. No, I don't believe that either Massachusetts senators are on the Pingree bill. No, okay.
I thought I heard Shelley Pingree say in her comments today that Senator Brown was going to be one of the co-chairs.
That's a different, right. That's a Senator Brown from Ohio, right? Right.
But we can hope.
But
I am getting all sorts of like signals from the Museums of Science team, so we can begin the process of disengaging and still stay engaged as we sort of wander out of the museum. But I really want to thank you all for coming and thank the museum for putting up with all of us. And thanks and happy birthday to David Rabkin, whose 12th birthday it is today.